Britain's opposition Labour Party leader Sir Keir Starmer has pledged to resign as leader of his party if he is found to have broken lockdown rules. This pledge comes amid political uproar after allegations resurfaced that he broke COVID rules in April last year by taking part in a gathering in Durham, where he and other party leaders ate curry and drank beer. Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner, who also attended the event, also pledged to resign if she was fined by Durham police, who are currently investigating the incident. Starmer's promise is a bid to prove that he had a different set of principles compared to Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Starmer said in a statement that the British public deserve politicians who think the rules apply to them. Remember, Johnson has refused to resign despite already having been fined for breaching lockdown rules in Downing Street back in June 2020. Back when the Johnson government had been embroiled in a series of scandals involving lockdown breaches, Starmer had called on both Johnson and Finance Minister Rishi Sunak, who had also been fined, to step down. Both Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have maintained that no rules had been broken since it was a work event and not a social one. On April 30th last year, England was under Step 2 rules. Gathering indoors with people from outside your household was against the law. There was an exemption for work purposes, but the rules did not mention socialising at work. Bars and restaurants were open outdoors for groups of 6 people or 2 households, but indoor service was not allowed. So the question before the Durham police will be whether the Labour officials eating and drinking together was necessary for work. For Starmer, this Beergate investigation is poorly timed. He has presented himself throughout the Partygate saga as a contrast to Johnson, and the Conservatives' missteps are reflected in last week's local elections. But now the focus has shifted from Conservatives' losses or Labour's gains to Keir Starmer himself, who before this had a reputation of being Mr. Rules. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police are continuing their own investigation into 12 gatherings held in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office during 2020 and 2021. And for more insights on this, we are being joined by Laura Marking-Isherwood, live from London. Laura, good to see you. Some would take Starmer and Rayner's pledge with a pinch of salt. How did Londoners react to the opposition statement that he will resign if found to have breached the rules?
Well, it's a bit of a gauntlet that's been thrown down to the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, isn't it? Basically putting himself on the line, Sir Keir Starmer, saying he is willing to go as leader of the Labour Party if he is found to have broken the rules. His deputy as well, Angela Rayner, also willing to step down if she's found to have breached them. Something that the Prime Minister and other Conservative ministers already find have not done. So the feeling, I suppose, is that while this might be a risky move, of course the police are investigating, seemingly Sir Keir Starmer must have calculated it somehow to presume that he could come through this relatively unscathed. There are sources within the Labour Party that have been reported of saying that they can prove that Sir Keir and other members of the Labour Party that were there in the northeast of England did continue to work after that meal, which was of a takeaway curry and of beer. That, they say, should fall within those lockdown rules. And so consequently, this pledge to step down may not even come into fruition because he may not be fined. But of course, it is up to the police to have an independent investigation into this. And now it's essentially a waiting game to see what their conclusions are and indeed what the fate of the Labour leader will be. Last night, he gave a statement at Labour headquarters saying that simply he had had something to eat with his staff members, that he was in the northeast as part of an election campaign, and if they hadn't had that takeaway, then they wouldn't have eaten at all, saying many politicians would have done the same. Right. It was essential for his work. And he has said that he believes that politicians need to stick and stand by the rules that they make.
Laura, finally, Parliament has already opened. Eyes will be on Prime Minister. Despite the scandals, how crucial is this day for Boris Johnson and the Conservative government?
Well, it's pretty essential, of course. As you mentioned a little bit earlier, this comes just a short time after local council elections here, and the Conservatives did not do that well. They lost a number of councils that were previously under their control, handed over to Labour and also Liberal Democrat governments. Boris Johnson, of course, will be under pressure now, perhaps, to follow those examples that seemingly are being set by the Labour Party, those claims that they will step down if found to have been guilty of that breach. It also places pressure on him, doesn't it, that if Sir Keir Starmer is found to have breached those lockdown rules, then will the Prime Minister be expected to do the same? That, of course, will come down to the public. Also, Sir Keir Starmer says, down to their own principles within that party. So there's certainly extra pressure being placed on Boris Johnson right now. Let's see what happens today.
Live from London, Laura Markin-Isherwood, thank you very much for your insights today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.